in that regard, with regard to my relationship with women. And that spirit will be able to connect through those thoughts quite easily, because I'm unprotected in that area. Does everyone get that? All right. So what does he do? He's up here, spirit. He drops into my mind, yeah, all women are bitches. Right? And that triggers this emotion in me of me being angry with my mother. And then I start acting out. And he might drop in mind, yeah, they're all bitches. You know, just use them. You can use them. You know, that's what they're doing to you anyway. Right? So he just starts dropping these thoughts in. And, you know, you might be walking along the street and all of a sudden drawn to look at a woman and the feeling is, oh, I want to have sex with her. And that could be dropped in by that same spirit, exactly the same way, through this emotion of anger and feeling certain feelings towards women. Does that make sense? And to be frank with you, all of us are like this melting pond, if you like. We are inside of ourselves, able to have any of these thoughts dropped into us at any point in time, based on what my unhealed emotional condition is at that time. Jen, if we have a mic, if you put your hand up.
Often at times they've talked to me in my own voice.
Yep. What sounds like?
They mimic a set of events that perhaps resonate with a memory that may or may not be true about my life, and talk to me in my own voice. And so I can't tell the difference at times.
And the truth is, for many of us, is that we think we can't hear spirits, right? The majority of us feel that we can't. The truth is that you're actually hearing spirits half your life, right? You just don't even know yet what thought is your own and what thought's theirs, because their thoughts are so much in harmony with your own. And the reason why is because of the emotional injuries that are there. Alex?
AJ, the most difficult thing I find is I'm in the middle of a process. And then I feel them coming in, like wanting to shut me down. And that's when I get really frustrated with the path and with God and my guides and everything. I said, I'm trying to do the right thing. Like I'm busting my ass here. I'm getting hassled.
So many of you who have quite open mediumistic connection, which you do have, Alex, find this really frustrating place. But you're not being honest with yourself, actually. When a spirit comes in to influence you, they're coming in to influence you because of a hook that you have to that influence. And the key is to find that hook to the influence. Now, the hook to the influence isn't usually about the same thing you're processing. Now, I'm going to illustrate that with you. Let's say you have a belief that men that are older than you should always be listened to.
And the example you used before, that was just me, totally me.
So what was that?
The one with I thought you must have heard me processing where all women are bitches and walking down the road and projecting at women and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, so let's look at that. So we've got some male spirits, you know they're males, right? And when you're starting to try to process an emotion about your sexual interest in women, right, these men are basically there trying to influence you in the opposite direction. Is that correct? Okay. Now, what's their hook? They have a hook into you. Now, they're perfectly happy to influence you in this opposite direction that is disharmonious with love. But what you've got to find is, why do you want to follow them? Because otherwise you wouldn't follow them. They wouldn't even be able to influence you unless you wanted to follow them. There's got to be a reason why you want to follow them. Now, oftentimes the reason why you follow them has got nothing to do with the emotion you're processing. And in fact, it's got something to do with totally different. And what I wanted to do is illustrate it. What's your feelings towards older, angry men? What do you feel about an angry man? What's your feelings when you're with an angry man?
I don't know. I'd have to feel into it.
Yeah.
Well, initially, I've always projected greater anger back.
Okay. Why would you do that?
Because I'm obviously fearful.
Okay, so you're obviously afraid of them,
Yeah.
right? What are you afraid of? You're afraid of them getting violent with you, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So you're afraid of these men getting violent with you, so what you want to do is get violent back first, protect yourself. But obviously there is some fears in there from men being violent towards you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about spirits who are violent? How do you feel about that? What's your fears there? Can you see you've got some fears there? Would you like to have a nice, friendly spirit around you, or would you like to have an angry spirit around you? Which one would you prefer?
Obviously, a nice, friendly.
Okay. Well, you know how you make them nice and friendly? Is you do whatever they want. You know this, right? Why does somebody get angry with you? Because they want to control you. When they get angry with you and you finish up feeling afraid, what do you finish up doing eventually? You finish up doing exactly what they want. What does that do? Makes them happy. How do you keep somebody happy? You do exactly what they want. How many of us have learned that in our lives? Yeah? How do you make mum and dad happy? Do exactly what they want, right? How do you make your friends happy? Do exactly what they want. That's what you do, isn't it? Obviously, there might be other emotions that have never been good enough and all those kind of things. But from a spirit perspective, what's actually happening is this. This spirit knows that you want a happy coexistence with him. He also knows that you have an injury where if he projects anger at you, right, that you'll have a tendency to want to do what he wants. Does that make sense? He also knows that you have an injury with regard to women and having to look at them because it gives you an emotion inside of yourself that's unhealed. He also has the same emotion. He has the emotion where he also feels that he can project at women and wants to have sexual interactions with women on the same basis. But his hook into you is that he knows that you're going to be afraid of him if he gets nasty with you. Do you follow me?
What? Yeah. Yes, I've been processing a lot of fears of spirits and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Is that the way to go?
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is that the more you get rid of with regard to why you're afraid of him, you'll start not doing what he wants anymore, right? And it's only, he's telling you to do something that you here know at least that you don't want to do, but you feel drawn to do it not because of the women and how pretty or beautiful they are, but because you're afraid of this man getting nasty with you. If you can imagine it a little differently. You're walking along with a group of male friends, all football types, let's say, right? We're looking along, and this is not to categorise any of them, but they're all big burly fellas, quite forthright, connected with their bodies and so forth. And you're walking along with a group of them. Now, many of those men would ogle the woman as they walk past and totally justify that, would they not? Wouldn't they? So they go, oh, look at her, and she got, and I won't repeat what they might say, because a lot of it would be quite terrible to say, really, right? But they're saying all of that, and they may even say it loud enough for the woman to hear, right? Mightn't they? Now, there's this group of men, and let's say now for a moment, they're all spirits, still walking along with you, right? Now, the only way that I'm going to be drawn into the same conduct as what they are exhibiting is by wanting approval from them. Can you see that? If I had a feeling inside of me, no, actually, this is wrong to talk to this woman this way, there would also then be the opposite feeling of, but what about my mates? What are they going to feel about me if I don't do it? So if we were all on earth walking along, all of a sudden, I'm the only male out of a group of 5 males who's not ogling the woman. What's going to happen now? What's going to happen now is, now I'm getting a lot of projection from these 4 other guys that I'm not towing the line. What's wrong with me? Oh, you gay or something? Like, why aren't you interested in projecting at the woman? Like, you get a lot of banter, which is obviously projection and control, right? And so what's happening if we're all mates on earth is that the only way that I will conform to their behaviour, if I disagree with it inside of myself, is because I have an emotional hook into their approval. Can you see that? And it's exactly the same with our interactions with spirits. See, most of the time in our interactions with spirits, we are seeking their approval, and the only way that we can get approval is to do the same thing they do or want us to do. Yep. Now, if I have an emotional injury inside of myself where I don't have a firmness for truth that's built inside of me, I now have a hole. I now have an area that's open inside of myself that allows me to be influenced. I am now vulnerable to attack. And the way I'm vulnerable to attack is, all somebody external to me needs to do is imply that I'm not whatever the attack point is, and I'll automatically feel like I have to do what they want. Even though inside of myself I don't feel it's right, I will still go and do it. Right? And this is happening to us with spirits and people on earth all the time, if you think about it. Right? What's happening on earth and with spirits is oftentimes we go down a course of action not because we agree with it, but because we want the emotional approval of our family, our friends, or the biggest thing I'm saying is the spirits around you to do it. Do you get that? Should we go up the back? Yeah, there first. Yeah, and switch it.
Tom?
It takes a little while.
Can I just ask you, can spirits have the influence on your body as far as, before I wanted to ask a question and then I kicked into the fear of like, oh, no one wants to hear me and la la la, all that sort of thing.
Yep.
Instantly I got a sore throat. So
Yep.
is that my body, like is that my reaction to my negative emotion, or can that be spirit influence like shutting me down there?
Well, the fact is that you feel afraid to speak, so that automatically begins to shut down your throat. Does that make sense? But a spirit can now hook into that because of the fears that you have quite easily. So if the spirit doesn't want you to say what you wanted to say, all they have to do now is connect to you via this fear you have of saying it in front of maybe an audience or whatever it is. What is the fear?
Fear of humiliation.
Okay.
And not being understood. There's
So
quite a few.
they just say, oh, you might get humiliated, you might get humiliated. They just drop that thought into your mind, right? You might get humiliated, and now you're in a state, well, I don't want to say anything because I might get humiliated, right? And that's their hook into you. Does that make sense? And the hook into you is often very, very different than the actual action you take. They're often very different, the emotion that will hook into you, than the action you take. And when you look at what's happening on earth, you can see this very readily as well, really. Like, why do you want to conform to what your family says for you to do? Isn't it because you don't want to lose your family? Isn't that the emotional reason? I don't want to lose my family, so I feel like I must do what my family says. Isn't it the same with your friends? I don't want to lose my friends, so I've got to do what they say. Now, it's exactly the same with spirits. I don't want to lose these spirits around me, whatever. I'm going to do exactly what they say. And there's always some emotional hook that you have into them. It's very important to understand that. If we come down to Natalie and then across to